Welcome everybody to Construction Tech Tuesday. We're very happy that you're here and we're excited about today's presentation with Jeevan. And the Passive House Accelerator is a collaborative online platform for sharing innovation and thought leadership in passive house design and construction. We publish articles and interviews, produce weekly virtual confabs with passive house pioneers from around the world, and elevate the work and programming of the passive house movement's leaders, practitioners, and organizations through interviews, articles, social media campaigns, videos, and podcasts. Our aim is to catalyze zero carbon building by accelerating the adoption of passive house building. With our co-hosts, Sean St. Amour, Kevin Brennan, and Mark Willey, we have launched Construction Tech Tuesday to share the technical, the technique, and the technology of passive house construction tech. Each week, we'll welcome guest practitioners to dive into the details of practice with the builder and tradesperson as our target audience. We welcome folks from all corners of the construction and design world to join us each week. And with that, I'll hand it off to Kevin.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. We've got an exciting show for everyone. This is our first time really talking about the HVAC requirements for passive house buildings. The projects are going to get big. Their stories are going to get real. The decisions that are made are going to be presented, and we're going to have a good time. Please speak up your questions, share your experiences. I'll be chiming in with some of the projects that I've worked on, and feel free to ask a question or bring up a thought. And I'm very excited to see Jeevan's presentation.
Kevin, thanks. My name is Mark Willey. Glad to be here tonight. And we got to see a sneak peek of this last night. So buckle up. There's about 342 slides. And this is approximately 4 to 4.5 hours. Your questions are encouraged. Don't believe anything I say unless I wink. And Sean, over to you.
Of course. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Kevin, Mark, and myself really enjoy passive house, and we understand, that the trades are going to be the real drivers in making the transition. So we're happy to come out weekly with different speakers, different topics to talk about. And this week is exciting because my friend, and of course that's always with a PH, we don't have F's in the accelerator world, Mr. Jeevan Thaker, and it's great because he's one of those kind of guys where you meet and he's got lots of energy, and when you find out why he's got lots of energy, he used to play competitive soccer, and so no one really could chase him around the soccer field, and he also loves fast cars. So if there was going to be like a Fast and the Fury 10 passive house edition, I think Mr. Jeevan would be the lead role. So little side note, 475 doesn't have the rights for Lunos in Canada. And so I kind of like one of Jeevan's unofficial employees, because I kind of sell a few of those over to him. So really exciting to partner up with someone that is as passionate about high performance. And it's exciting to see in the few short years what he's transitioned his company into evolving, and always great discussion in how he's moving and shaking and taking his competitive soccer traits into competitive business. So that being said, Mr. Jeevan, over to you, sir. Fire up the engine.
Wow, what a great introduction. Thank you, guys. Hey, Mark, just a heads up before I start, I pared it down to 300 slides, actually 299. So we got 4 hours, and I pared it down to 3 hours and 29 minutes. Yeah, let's rock and roll. Well, thank you for the introduction. Really appreciate it. A lot of passionate people around in the industry. Nice to talk to everybody. Feel free to ask questions, put the comments on the side. I'm sure Sean and his team and everybody will make sure you can ask questions. So lots of slides. I'm kidding. I think I got 20 slides, and last time when we did a sneak peek, we only got through 6 slides. So I'll do my best to go through it. I'm sure you'll have questions. So please, let's rock and roll. So quick agenda, a little bit about my company. We're entering our 21st year in the business, and I'll tell you where our headquarters are and where we're heading. A little introduction of our local projects we've done, in particular with passive house, net zero buildings. And then we're going to do a deep dive project. It's called 1020 Legacy Way up in Whistler with the Whistling House Authority. We're going to talk about design, installation, commissioning. And then I think we're going to spend a lot of time on the lessons learned and new implementations that we have done working with the construction community in BC. Okay, well, who are we? Well, we are celebrating our 21st year. Our headquarters is in Port Coquitlam. We have a satellite office in the Kelowna area that looks after the interior BC, and we have an office in Edmonton. So we're expanding, growing. Yeah, and we're in the sectors of institutional, commercial, multifamily, and obviously passive house. That little side picture there is just our website. We're very active on it. We put a lot of case studies on it, so it gets updated quite often. Feel free to jump on it. I thought this would be a good slide, and then we can dive into actual high performance products. Currently, we offer over 42 product lines in the market. Probably, I don't know, four out of these 42, probably about 30 of them in Alberta as well. So we've been slowly but growing over the last 21 years. So I leave that up there for a minute. You may recognize some of the product lines and some may be foreign to us. Okay, well, why are we here? So I thought I'd share just a few pictures. I could do maybe a few more slides of these, but some of these pictures, we couldn't be successful without obviously our partners, our engineers, our architects, owners, all heading towards a passive house type design. But I'll leave this up for a second, but Clayton Community Center, a lot of firsts. So first community center in North America, Radius and Orion, just the two opposite there. That's a project in Whistler with a building owner that's driven to be net zero, first of its kind in Pemberton. Charter Telecom is a global company in Victoria that wanted to do a first passive house project across Canada. Vancouver Fire Hall, I'm sure everybody's heard of that. First fire hall in North America. So a lot of firsts. I'm skipping Whistler Housing. That's the one we're going to dive into. UVic student resident building, first project dorm building in passive house. I know there's a lot more coming online, but yeah, a lot of firsts. Just about HVAC systems, we have over 100 units installed. I would call them supercharged passive house certified HRVs. Just to give you a perspective how BC has grown in the last 3 to 4 years, we have 100 units installed just in British Columbia. There are, of the same manufacturer, 500 units installed in North America. So we are a big chunk of the North America market. Over 30 projects installed already, and 40 projects are in design coming on board 2021. I would probably say of those 40, I would say 30 of them are going to go this year. So interesting, lots of projects. So let's dive into this project. So Whistler Housing Authority, just to give you a little perspective, and thank you for the pictures from Integra Architecture. It's a low-rise apartment building, first passive house project of its kind, and we worked closely with the Whistler Housing Authority. The project itself has 24 rental apartments, and it's operated by Whistler Housing. Okay, let's talk about design. All right, original design, believe it or not, they didn't phone us first. So we were not chosen, we were not designed around, but that's okay. Maybe it's, we'll take it as our fault. We didn't do enough marketing maybe. But having said that, there are, on a serious note, there are limited products out in the marketplace, and there's some challenges, right? So good or bad, budget's always a concern. So the original design was it was called a partially decentralized units. And what that was in the attic space, they had 4 HRVs, constant volume, trying to give a comfort feel in the space, 24 suites. Ideally, it'd be a decentralized system, 1 HRV per suite, but cost was a big factor for them. So challenges, over budget, there was no cooling design in the original design, no individual suite control, moisture removal was a big issue, first cost again over budget, controls, troubleshooting, suite comfort control. Those are kind of names that people toss around when they talk about ventilation, and I thought I'd just throw that out there. We'll do a little bit more deep dive into that, but those were kind of the questions that came up. Obviously, budget was a concern, and that's why they stopped the construction process. So how did we get involved, or how do we decide? And the question can be at all different levels. It can be from a supplier manufacturer like HVAC Systems. It could be our customers, which would be mechanical contractors, mechanical engineers, consultants, and then architects, owners. So what happens next? The job's over budget. Who should be involved in the decision making of making the change? Do we need to make a change? And then ultimately, what's the key criteria of the project? And what's the right solution? So I posit this, just how did we get involved? Well, you know, we've been having some success installing some projects, getting specified, and Whistler Housing and the internet connects everybody. And tonight, everybody, there's people all over the world, right, are connecting. Stories are getting shared. And it's easy to connect and send an email and or just know people. We've been doing this for 21 years. This is new into our market sector for the last 3 years. So we got the call and they asked us to be part of a decision-making process, or what ideas do we have, or what experience, right? And I think that's the key takeaway, is what experience do you have that you can share? So it's not easy, and there's no right answers and there's no wrong answers. It's just a process. I think I'm trying to remember, this is about 2 years ago, just to give everybody an idea. Whistler Housing Authority has been operating for 2 full seasons. When I say 2 full seasons, that's 2 winter seasons, 2 summer seasons. That's how we look at the HVAC ventilation for a passive house job. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So we looked at, first off, it was a passive house project. So you need passive house certified product. Do you need it? No, but it definitely helps you along the way to get to a passive house certified certification. Lowest energy consumption goes along with that. Seasonal temperatures, challenges up in Whistler. Last year we, and we'll get into it, we recorded temperatures of -9 degrees in the winter, and summer hit 36 degrees. And I have a slide of that. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but 36 degrees in the summer. So how do you preheat for ventilation, and how do you cool in the summer, right? Challenges. Remote troubleshooting. We will get to that as lessons learned, but picture when you're talking to your end user, your customer, whoever it is, how are they going to maintain this building? Whistler Housing Authority has a lot of projects, a lot of buildings. They don't have a maintenance team just dedicated to 1020 Legacy Way. So that was a factor. Free cooling, post cooling, I think everybody knows what those mean. And then individual suite control. So if you look, I think we peeled everything back and said, what's the easiest and simple way to try to manage all those 7 points? And the answer is, if one unit could do everything for your building, then let's start there. And so that's where we started. On the picture on the right there, it's a simple, working with our consultant, it's a simple diagram, a schematic just showing one unit in the attic space. There's 4 levels to the building, and it looks like 1 supply duct down and 1 supply or exhaust duct back to the HRV. Pretty simple, right? I know I'm making it simple, but we can get into all the details of how do we ventilate, how do we do boost mode, and everybody talks about those things. But simplifying that duct work versus, let me go back, showing that it's hard to see, but you've got some ductwork here. You have an HRV that's dedicated for makeup air for the corridor. You've got 3 other units down in this right-hand side showing ventilation to the different floors. So possible, but this looks a lot easier. So it started there. And I would say probably the #1 thing different on passive house projects versus any other construction jobs that we've been involved is the way to work. And I think even Mark said it earlier, to collaborate. And I think the word everybody uses, but I'll use it in real world. Working with the consultant, working with the end user on cost right up front. What's a budget for 2 units versus 1 unit? How is that going to impact the project? So we do that right up front. I think it's best practice. I think we should always do that. And it keeps you online for making sure the end result is what you're looking for. So I would take that away instead of some pretty drawings. Make sure costs are part of the conversation every time. And let's get into installation. So so the solution was 1 unit. So there's lots of products out there. We just happen to have a product line. that has a Passive House certified. A couple highlights of that helped on this project was we can go up to 10,600 CFM Passive House certified units. So we can get pretty large units. One of the cool features we can do is we can get down to minus 45 C Celsius with no defrost. And for everybody that is trying to count every watts per square foot, where that's impacting, if you don't have to put a pre-kilowatt heater or preheat before your HRV, that extra wattage you can use into somewhere else in the building, right? Into the energy, into your building, into your envelope, into your windows. There's a lot of stuff like that you could use it for. So it's a good factor. Just keep that in mind wherever you are in the world. That's a really good feature to have. And the last thing, obviously everybody knows to be Passive House certified, 77% is kind of your ceiling number. Anything above that is obviously very helpful and helps you make decisions around your building instead of just ventilation. And on this project, I think we were achieving about 87, 88% efficiency. So yeah, it's compact. There's HRVs out there as well that are compact, but we'll get into some of the other features a little bit later. Lots of pictures on this. If you haven't noticed, I like pictures instead of words. Here's a lot of words. This was not my slide, but I had to put it in real quickly, but it'll be hard to read, but just a quick picture of showing the integration. This is kind of like me slowing down instead of putting on a little bit of the brakes, Sean. The green arrow just on the left there, if we're going through summer there mode and the green shade. So green arrow goes through the unit. And as it passes from left to right, the first stage, what we call is heat recovery or wheel. That's going to obviously try to produce as much bring out the cooling air through the supply fan. And then you notice there's a coil section that goes into a Mitsubishi condensing unit or a VRF condensing unit. So what's that doing for the building? Basically, you're bringing outside air in. The wheel is slowing down to try to not do as much heat recovery, bring that air in. The condensing unit, the coil kicks in, try to produce as much cooling as it possibly can into your building to satisfy your cooling. And we call that tempered cooling, meaning it's not full cooling, air, but it will cool the air. And the winter is just the opposite, right? So you got your outside air. When we were talking about -9 degrees, your heat recovery wheel is going to speed up as much as it can and recover as much as it can. And then your second stage of heating will be your VRF, which goes into heating mode and try to heat the building to your set point. I'll show you that a little bit in real time in a second. Let's jump back a couple of steps when we said, let's work with the consultants, the end user, here's our first cost. So we did that, we achieved that. And you saw the ductwork. So you have to look at the whole system, and the whole system showed we were under budget. So that was great. So Whistler Housing said, what else you guys got? And that's a dangerous question to ask me, right? We got more. We got 42 other product lines. What else can we jam into this job? What makes sense, right? So one of the solutions was, well, we have a product that we could help with individual suite control and give you your normal, and we'll talk a little bit about boost control, night setback, but we have a solution for that, and it's a very inexpensive solution. So we went down that path. The short story of that, they saved enough money on the original design of a single unit and the controls and package that they had enough money on the side that they actually went with this React damper system that we have, and they added that to the project. So just to put it in perspective, I know this job for the last 2 years, but original design, 4 HRVs, no cooling. Now we've got, and no individual suite control. Now we have, in the same budget, we've got 1 HRV, individual suite control, plus cooling. And that was the same price, if not less. Let's call it same price for, and it's just simplified for the job. So React Damper is just to give everybody a perspective. I think some people have heard of it. There's over 2,000 installed in North America. We have quite a few projects in BC that are coming online already. There's some fun ones on the bottom. They're all British Columbia projects. The 2 towers that look pretty interesting, those are Alberni projects everybody's probably heard of, maybe heard of. Lots of advertising around that, obviously. And we've got probably over 2,000, 3,000 React dampers specified on that project. So yeah. And again, It's what the project needs, right? Don't forget, make sure we understand budget. What is the project key criteria? So I keep talking about what is this React damper system. Basically, it's a damper system that that doesn't need DDC controls. And I guess I want to say that it's originated to be intended to run independently in each suite to maintain building pressure. The guts of the brains of the project or of the building is back in the HRV. So I'm trying to simplify it a little bit. I'm sure there'll be questions for people to ask. But one of the unique things working with our energy modeler on this job was RDH. They're used to normal mode, boost mode, which is kind of a flush mode of a building, night setback when people are maybe on a vacation. But for the first time, they actually, and it was quite painful, but our first one, doing economizer mode. So economizer mode is ideal, right? You're slowing down your fans to as much as you can, using as much as least amount of energy you can. But we can track that. So with React dampers, we are able to track economizer mode. So again, living in BC, we're quite fortunate. It could be a substantial savings. And I'll show you a little bit about that. Just the bottom picture for people looking at, they allowed a little access space in the storage area of every suite, and the 2 React dampers are in there and calibrated. I'm going to spend 30 seconds on this because there's a lot of stuff here. Just when we brought the product into the marketplace 2 years ago, I think the simplest version, option 1 would be let the React dampers do what they need to do. I think that's what we brought in the marketplace. Fast forward to option 3, we have some projects online. If an operator, owner, sophisticated customer that wants to control every point or every percentage of that damper opening and monitor that, we have that option as well. It's taken 2 or 3 years for the product to develop that, but it is available, and we do have that coming online in BC first quarter of this year. So that's kind of fun and interesting to develop a product. So you can get pretty good access to controls. I think that was 30 seconds. Commissioning, interesting topic. So we've been doing this for 21 years. The last 3 years have been challenges, learning curve, working with our partners. Believe it or not, as a manufacturer rep, we would work with our engineers, get the product specified, secure the project with our mechanical contractor, supply the equipment. We have a service division that would start up the product, and then we would do startup, and then our warranty would start. And once in a while, we get a question, and then based on the product, expectation, 10 years, 20-year product, and off it goes. We found a really steep curve with Passivos, and I'm going to go back to the question I think Mark was asking, collaboration. We found every job, so 30 of our projects, we're spending more time, and we'll get into it, of the kind of the procedures we put in place now on our projects, but we spend more time on the commissioning, construction time upfront before any of our products arrive on site. And one of the things we do for the construction team was to go through the schematic and make sure everybody understands what is the important and where's the responsibility lie. And I think that's a key part of it. That's helping the scope of mechanical contractors, their subtrades, which are sheet metal, commissioning agents, controls contractor. It's way ahead of the curve instead of products arriving on site and team meetings on site. So we're doing that 3-4 months at least before. So that's a different curve and different level of service that we're providing. And I think it makes Passive House unique in that way. And I think it makes projects a lot smoother. So we ask for that quite often, either at the beginning of the project or when it's awarded. And this is what we've also developed. So this is handed out. It's a commissioning report based on our product. And this goes through the controls contractor. If there's no controls contractor, we'll work with the construction team. Let's just call it that. And we walk through that, making sure before our service team arrives on site, the expectation is set of how the unit's going to operate. And one of the key things we find out is for us to be able to produce a Passive House certificate, we need to understand that to make sure it works within its parameters. So For us to do that, this makes life easier. So our commissioning, just to give you an idea, would be, or our startup could last as much as 4 days, 5 days for a unit. Gets down to about a day, day and a half to 2 days per unit now. So just, things like this, right? After 100 units installed, these are things that it just makes the whole overall project and good communication between all the trades. So results. Sean, I was gonna put a picture of you on the couch because I know you're lazy and you like being comfortable, but I thought let's put something that's cute. So results. What's the results? Real world time. Whistler Housing. We're again sensible efficiency. We're seeing at 88.5%. I know it goes down to 88.5, but close enough. But one of the cool features is the specific fan power efficiency. We're at 0.35. To be Passive House certified product, it'd be 0.77. So quite efficient, right? What else? Comfort. We had individual suite control. We talked about boost. We talked about night setback. We even talked about economizer quickly. But comfort, if they're comfortable, if he or she's comfortable, then hey, life is good. And I think the biggest point, maybe it should have been jumping out on the slide if it hasn't, keep it simple. You keep it simple. You can track the problems. You can replicate a success story. So I think that's the story of Whistler Housing. So, oh yeah, perfect. Live monitoring. So what we do as a service, as long as there's a Cat5 cable ran to every HRV unit on our project, we ourselves, HVAC Systems, or even Swagon themselves as our manufacturer, can dial into the actual unit. And this is a fun little story. I think people's pictures are in my way, but if you go from right to left on this, and it's also written over there, but the green, the arrow, it's always green for outside air. But if you look at that number, I don't know if anybody can see my mouse, but 4.6 degrees Celsius outside, the wheel is running at 100% capacity. Here's our coil, which is tied to our outdoor VRF condensing unit. It's off, which is a good thing. And with 4.6 degrees, with our 88.5% efficient unit, our set point was 18.3, and sorry, our set point was 19.3, and we're at 18.3. So that's pretty cool. And we can do that live anytime when we're running. We do that quite often. I would say 90% of our projects, we have this feature in it. And that's standard for us. It's a great to troubleshoot and see if the unit is working properly, right, to design. So lessons learned. So lots on the slide, but we'll spend a few minutes on this. So where does it start? Who's responsible for things? Let's talk about equipment. Let's pick on equipment because that's who we are. Make sure it's properly set up. Installation's done. Having that meeting up front with the construction team. Remote monitoring I just mentioned. It's really easy to make sure you run a Cat5 cable. Most buildings have a lot of cable running through it. What we do unique is, again, Passive House jobs, we do seasonal startups. So again, different from our whole mindset over the last 20 years or 18 years. We do startup in the summer and we do startup in the winter, and the building changes, right? So until you understand the building, how it breathes, how it functions over a year, it's good to have that service. So we build that service in. React Damper, we talked a little bit about that, just setting that up earlier. A great example of that is we preset our values at the factory. The commissioning agent on this job had 2 weeks to do commissioning. Again, there was 24 suites, so we had 2 React dampers per suite, so that's 48 dampers. He had 2 weeks to set that up and balance it. It took them 3 days to complete the whole project. So the commissioning side went down to, everybody's happy, right? Get off the project easier and get it up and running into the owner's hands. That's a good thing. So let's talk about things. I think I mentioned all the good things that happened. There was some hiccups and some good speed bumps. So let's talk about things what we've learned. So our equipment is going to have to perform what it's got to do. But part of the success of that is Let's pick on ductwork. I think one of our huge lessons on this project is ductwork distribution, ductwork layout, ductwork sealing. So we had some issues on the project. We couldn't get the project balanced. And I think overall, I think a lot of construction people are catching up to the tolerances that they need to do with just specifically about ductwork. So for example, if you're dealing with a hospital, 80,000 CFM of air handling, you have a little bit of ductwork leakage, you're probably going to be okay, right? So you have a little bit of leakage, you may have 1%, so you might lose 8,000 CFM. Well, now you're down to 72,000 CFM on an 80,000 CFM unit. Still not good, but probably okay, right? On passive house projects, I think people forget. Think about our unit. This unit is probably 3,000 CFM. Each suite is getting about 110 CFM. When you have leakage of 1%, 2%, 5%, whatever it is, it's significant. So one takeaway for me, for sure, again, out of our scope, but because we have these early setup meetings with the whole construction team, is don't wait till the end of the project to test your ductwork. I've heard a lot of projects where there's main branches that are tested or just maybe the riser. I highly recommend, you're going to save in the long run. You're going to get your project commissioned quicker. Test your main branch, test your risers. There's ways to do that, and it'll get you on the right path. So good and bad. We had some issues. We went to the attic space. We had 7 gaping holes in the ductwork. We patched those up. All of a sudden, at the end of our main duct, we had the full CFM that we needed to achieve, right? So small things like that. And again, it's impossible to believe, but it happens all the time. Again, 30 projects, quite a few of them, we've talked about that. And I think the construction trade is getting better. There's more projects out there. So I'm not going to get into ductwork because I'm not an expert, but there are different ways to seal ductwork, but pressure testing it somehow, I think, is a key way to do it. So if anybody walked away from this presentation, we don't sell ductwork. We're not ductwork experts, but it definitely helps on the system. Second part is balancing and commissioning. Again, no fault to anybody. It's making sure you have the proper balancing commissioning agent who has done a passive house or is getting trained to do passive house, because again, you need to have the right equipment. So we had some commissioning issues on the project. We ended up jumping in to help out because it was an equipment. It's easy to kind of, when things don't work, the first thing you point to is equipment, because maybe the unit's not producing the right air. Maybe it's engineering. Maybe the static pressure is wrong. But balancing and commissioning, ductwork tightness is a big part of it. So balancing and commissioning, what we realized, having the right tool is a game changer. You can't just use your standard tools in construction. And I pick on a hospital using instruments at a diffuser versus a passive house. Again, you need to be able to measure 60 CFM, 110 CFM. There's some investment there on a balancing commissioning agent that needs to help. So on that project, the original commissioning agent, again, didn't have the equipment, so we ended up helping out and bringing our own commissioning agent to help. And then seasonal review, I think I mentioned that. There's pictures of the blower tower test that everybody's familiar with. That's your building envelope itself, but this is specific to ventilation that we learned. And again, a lot of it outside of our scope, but we're really part of wanting to make sure the collaboration is there, and we do that up front. So we have this on our checklist, and it saves a lot of questions in the end. There's a quick little video on every job. We have a little redact damper. I know I talk fast, I move fast apparently too, but we will go at our shop in Port Coquitlam and we'll test these, balance these ourselves, and then they ship them out to site. So again, I think we talked about 2 to 3 weeks commissioning on site versus 2 to 3 days. So when these units come out, they're pre-balanced, already set your min max on them. I wish I walked that fast and worked that fast. Quick summary, just 3 takeaways. passive house cost, right? I think we all believe on this call that passive house makes sense. Having supercharged HRVs and ventilation strategies will help reduce the cost of operating. Ventilation costs, again, utilizing, in my opinion, economizer mode, boost mode in the right way. And we're very lucky. We have a lot of projects in BC. We have a lot of consultants that are very forward thinking, and we're getting challenged every day with them in our industry to come up with better strategies. So great job on the consulting industry for pushing us that way. And then controllability. I think I skipped over it. I think it's a super important part. With the product that we offer, not that we're saying this, but you could eliminate some form of DDC controls. And that was one of the savings on the project, with the brains being part of the HRV, communicating with these dampers and giving you control. We eliminated a big portion of the DDC on the project. So something to consider. Some projects won't allow that, but we'll work with you on what that is needed. That's it. Wait, I can breathe now. Hold on.
Great job.
We got two more 100 slides, but should we take a break or?
I'll jump in and just say, phenomenal presentation. Your work is great. It speaks for itself. One thing I'm like admiring when I first took my passive house training was in the basics of the passive house network. You know, in the beginning with Dr. Feist's design, it was the original intent was to deliver heating through the ventilation air. And it seems that you're delivering both heating and cooling through the ventilation air. And it's very cool to see that you can really bring down the cost of passive house by providing that in the pre and post cooling. It's something that I wish we could accomplish more in my market of, in New York City. But I think the smarter people that may have worked on those numbers and haven't cracked that code yet. But on the other side of it, as somebody who's out in the field and looking at multifamily projects, I see large units going in, and my big pet peeve is unsealed ductwork. And it's 90% of the time it's process, not people. It's the products that they're using and how they're using it. When I see gray duct mastic being slapped on the duct, it makes my skin crawl. And if you just swap it out with good mastic tape and put it on the ducts, it makes a world of difference. I did one training on site with the HVAC contractor on one project. I put theatrical smoke into the duct. They saw where their leaks are. They're like, oh yeah, the tape is probably going to be a lot easier. And then they went back to their boss as a feedback loop and said, yeah, the tape will speed our job up. It's a little more expensive, but it's cleaner, it's neater, and it's easier. So I push for mock-ups for everything that we do. And if we can get the industry to do, the first run mock-up of the first trunk line and test it and see if it passed, and then test the next one, see if it passed. If 3 of them pass in a row, you don't need to test the 4th or 5th one. So
Kevin,
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Kevin, add to that a little bit. I think a really good point on that is we were aware of the smoke test in the ductwork to pressurize it, but the building had already been painted, the painters are already in, so you can't do that. So it just became a huge challenge, right? So do it when it's exposed, right? I think that's one. And just the second thing, your first comment about post and post cooling. There's a difference between tempered cooling and full cooling. I just want to explain that. We can talk about temperatures offline. There's so many people around the world on the call, but we can do it in Fahrenheit or Celsius. But there are ways to do tempered cooling, which is kind of getting the temperature to a satisfied level. But we are achieving full cooling with the same system, just a different way. If people are online, want to know a little bit more about that, but adding more VRFs in series with coils and dampers. But we did a guinea pig project in Pemberton. It's been running about 2 years, no, 1 year, sorry. And it's been working fine. And we, at the height of 37 degrees Celsius, we were able to achieve, I think it was 18 or 17 degrees Celsius in the suite. So, but it is a series and banks of VRF. So just want to make sure people understand there's tempered cooling and full coolings. They are 2 different things.
Thank you.
Mark, do you have any insights or comments to pass along before we dive into the questions?
Yeah, Sean, at this point, the first thing I'm going to say is, Jeevan, you did much better last night. Uh, but I say that people laugh at what I'm saying, but the thing is, last night also got a deeper dive because it was just six of us, and today it was a tailored approach to the project and the solutions. So I was over the moon with tonight, and the video at the end we didn't get a chance to see yesterday. That video, I actually thought you were in slow-mo because you do move so fast, and I can't wait to have you back already. And we're not even done with the first time. Bless your heart for what you've done for 21 years, and I can't wait to hear more and learn more about the solutions you guys offer. And the questions in the chat, I warned you, Jeevan, they were going to be thick. Sean already has a list going, so I'm going to reserve my time to Sean say no more.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
John, you promised I was done. I thought I was done now.
Yeah, you totally are. Yeah, you're done the presentation part. That's what you're done, sir. So take a deep breath. I just want to say too, I really liked all the connections that people were doing, putting in their LinkedIn accounts. That's great. We can see from kind of the people that showed up today that a few you did do your homework, and we had some more friends today. So just again, appreciate and thanks for all those people that jumped on the phone call and got some of your friends to join. It's great. Now, one thing too is for those that are new to Passive House, which, there might be a few of you out there, I just want to explain a couple things again. Is for all of us that know the 5 Passive House principles, you can surely join in, because what Jeevan's talking about is one big part of the standard, which is the fresh air, the continuous fresh air, which once we make our buildings airtight, so continuous airtightness, then we add the sweater on, lots of insulation, put in some really good windows. We've already taken care of the thermal bridging. It comes down to that fresh air. And so this is why tonight we wanted to take a deep dive, because when our buildings are airtight, we need to make sure that we provide the fresh air, and the systems and solutions that Jeevan spoke about are key. And I mean, really the service approach that you mentioned is fantastic. So let's dive into it. Mr. Jason Packer, more out of a comment than a question, but I just want to make sure that you got things figured out, Mr. Packer.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I really appreciate the comments on commissioning in general. And I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that you said there, Jeevan. You have a service division, and I'm just wondering, like, is it people who hire you for the commissioning is that the mechanical contractor typically?
Yeah, it is new. We are offering that service now, and it would be the mechanical contractor. Yes.
And so if you're doing that scope, then is there anyone else involved in the commissioning process?
Yeah, great question. Without naming a project, yes. So there's 2 sides of it. What we ended up doing is looking after our project portion, and then we're working in conjunction with the other commissioning part of it. So we want to be part of the solution. We're not trying to grow into being a commissioning agent out there. Yeah, we want more friends, not competitors, right? So
super. So I've got a passive house that's out for tender right now, and I'm actually losing sleep at night, feeling like the construction manager maybe doesn't get it when I'm telling him that the standard testing and balancing for a mid-rise MERB might not cut it here, and that they say, well, we just hire some guy to do testing and balancing. And how should I be speaking with them to help them understand that we have to address this early, and it's got to be a bit of a different process?
Sure. I think so. If I had to put a broad statement, I would say people perfect their craft. So people that are in the commissioning business, have companies on that, I think they're all capable of it. They just need to pay a little bit of special attention. So from a specifying point of view, there may be a couple things you may want to put in the specification, such as, here's the instrumentation you need to, because our airflows are so finite. Maybe that's a really good line in the commissioning part of it. And I think that would solve it. And then, controlling who can bid that, it gets down to a dangerous little slope, right? You want to be able to have as many people to have an opportunity to bid it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But But yeah, and then you'll know right away. I mean, once people bid it and they know those kind of, that they got to do those few steps, and I don't think it's a lot to change in a specification, but yeah,
Right.
I can help with you on a few of that if you want to do that.
I'll send you a note on LinkedIn.
Sure, perfect.
And then just one more quickly, you said one or 2 days per unit.
Yes.
And so you're referring to when you say per unit, you mean per HRV?
Yes. Yep.
And so if you have a suite level HRV solution, how does that impact your timeline in terms of?
Yeah, great question. We will have a better example of that coming in the end of first quarter. How about that?
Sure. Okay.
I can tell you, and maybe I didn't make it clear, but our centralized system HRV solution, the startup, which 1 to 2 days, depending on with the integrated HRV or the VRF system, it's not the setup, it's the control sequencing. So control sequencing definitely takes a good portion of a day, right? So
Yeah, sure.
and then part of the rest of it is just refrigeration and startup. So we do allow for 1 to 2 days per unit on a central HRV.
So with a suite level solution, it's going to be faster, but you have more of them to do.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that would be my guess, but we haven't. We'll know a little bit more about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
And thanks, Jason. Andy Wall.
If I could just jump in, this conversation is bringing awareness to the fact that we need more passive house tradesperson training geared towards the mechanical contractors, because I do think that credential with a 5-day course focused on balancing and ductwork and air tightness of ductwork and making connections and sound attenuation might be helpful. So if anyone's interested in, collaborating and putting together a kick-ass training or something, let's put our minds together and make it happen, because in my market, the contractors need to be trained, and across the country, in Canada, up in the Pacific Northwest, the contractors need to be trained. And when somebody takes the training, then they have the credential, then they can put a responsible bid on a project. So let's make it happen. Let's get that training out there. And I see it when I'm out in the field that people are using devices that don't have the ability to measure low flows. 24 CFM. And be within 1-2% range of that accuracy could be depending on the seal, could be depending on how it's actually compensating the pressure. So there's a lot in there. So thanks, guys.
And on that point too, just because I saw Susan jump in here, in the passive house tradesperson course, there's the looking at the wall assembly and then looking at mechanical system. And I know in Canada right now, we're only testing on the tradesperson, not on the mechanical. And I know in Canada we don't have a proper course, so this is definitely a hot topic, and we need to do this and need to scale it up as fast and furious as we need to be doing with all efforts. So okay, I think thanks, Kevin. We're going to go to Andy.
Yeah, thanks for taking this question. I'm curious about the 45 degrees C without defrost. I know this is a wheel, and I know very little about them. And I understand they can do better at that than having a core in it. So can you explain how they get to 45 C without defrost?
Yeah, great question. We're going to go into a little bit more detail here. So let's just go back to a second for we've got outside air at -9 degrees. It's cold. Your first thing is when there's frost forming on a wheel, or let's call it a plate frame heat exchanger, what happens to the HRV? There's terms like evap or exhaust defrost mode. I'll use that as an example. What happens there? Well, they shut down the supply air in an HRV, right? Because you don't want to bring cold air into the space. The exhaust fan kicks up, ramps up, and it's blowing on the core, and it's trying to defrost it. That cycle might be 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, then go back into normal operation to where the wheel or the core goes again, and then defrost. So that may happen one time a day, might be 3 times a day, depending on your area. So how do we actually change it? It's a unique feature on this product. What we ended up doing is we have a step motor that we call it on our wheel. We can run the wheel down to 0.5 RPM. So a typical wheel may run, I don't know, 12 to 15 RPM. We can go down to 0.5, so 0.5 RPM. So let's picture the weather again. -9, the wheel saying, hey, I've got to slow this thing down. We may ramp this up. And this is all a program, pre-programmed. It'll ramp down to 0.5 RPM to avoid defrost. And again, if it says, oh, well, at 2 RPM, we can keep maintaining that without defrost mode, then that's great. One of the key things that happened when I explained about evap defrost versus this, when we're down to 0.5, we have a project in Fort St. John. So it's the same. It's minus like 40, I think, up there. We had designed the project to be at normal summer condition at 90% efficient. That was the number that we came up with. It's a non-passive house job. At -40 outside, at I think it was like 1 RPM, our efficiency, what do you think from the efficiency of 90% slowing down the wheel? Where do you think our efficiency went down to, like 50% or 0, right? We actually dropped, it went from 90 to like 77, 76% efficient. So pretty good in those extreme conditions. So the unique part of that, hopefully I answered it, was it's the stepper motor where we can, with the wheel, slow it down so much that we don't go into defrost. And let's go back to evap defrost or exhaust defrost. When you're in defrost mode, what is your heat recovery percentage? What are you getting? It's 0, right? So we're still getting a pretty good efficiency at those low temperatures.
Okay, so you're still getting your airflow. You're just dropping the efficiency, which means the core can go to a lower temperature before you have to defrost.
And a great example would be, we have 42 product lines. We have other HRVs. We would not be able to do that with those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. All right, we're going to move over to Kevin Brown. And Kevin, always got to ask, is there a Chinook happening in Calgary?
No, as a matter of fact, there's this we had a snowstorm last night. We've had the weirdest weather. Last night we had a snowstorm right in the middle of this howling blizzard, like just crazy. Bang, big crack of lightning, kaboom, big roll of thunder. So, and they're thinking the same thing's happening tonight. So we've got these spring.
Let's get your question in there before it gets out of hand.
That's right. Yeah, too much. So anyway, what I was wondering with that unit is how low it can go, because I've got kind of a project where it's not that much, it's not that small, it's probably out of the range of your usual residential unit, but perhaps not so big. So you talk 10,000 CFM, but what's the bottom end?
Oh, of the size of a passive house certified unit that we have?
Yeah.
Offer?
Yeah.
You can, in this particular models, we can get down to 300 CFM. If you need something smaller,
that's perfect.
I think the answer is TBA for now.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. That's great.
Hey, Jeevan, we got to just pause the questions, even though there's still 20 more. So hopefully we can wrap it up before 6 o'clock. But it's time to ask you if you were able to think about your mentor, and who would you like to pay some respect to tonight?
Great. Thanks for putting me on the spot. I haven't thought about that. I just tried to get through the day today.
No worries. Okay, we'll come back to it. We'll go over to Zach, and
yeah, I'll give you some time to think. Thanks, Jeevan. So everything that we do at the Passive House Accelerator, including the Construction Tech Tuesday and tonight's event, comes thanks to support from our sponsors. So I want to give them a big shout out and encourage everyone to support them in your work in the Passive House world. So our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxtingwe Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minotaur All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Stocorp, Zola Windows. And our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA. Our patron sponsors are BR+A Consulting Engineers, Brennan Insulation and Airtightness, Innotech Windows and Doors, and US Engineered Wood, T-Stud. And we have, thanks to all the support, some cool programming coming up. We also just released the first issue of the Passive House Accelerator magazine, which is a direct descendant and outgrowth of the Passive House Buildings magazine that's been published by Mary James and Low Carbon Productions for many years. That's now part of the Passive House Accelerator, and Mary is creating magazines on this platform now, which is super exciting. And the first one is focused on passive house and prefab. So please check that out on our website. We have a great episode of the podcast, the Passive House podcast, going on right now with Ben Adam Smith, who is a podcaster extraordinaire in the Passive House world. Himself, he's based in the UK, and his podcast is called House Planning Help. And the conversation talks about Passive House in the UK, uptake there, ideas about communicating about Passive House, as well as the resources that are available on the hub at his website, House Planning Help. So it's a great conversation with co-host Matthew Cutler-Welsh. Tomorrow we have an exciting happy hour, Global Passive House happy hour with Laszlo Lepp, who will be presenting about an big Enerfit project in Innsbruck, Austria. So please join us tomorrow. We'd love to see you there. Next week at Construction Tech, we're joined by Mariana Pickering and Enrico Bonolari of EMU. And many of you know that both of them are key trainers for tradesperson courses. And that Kevin was mentioning the importance of tradesperson courses. They're going to be talking about mock-ups and installation, and they'll be focused on some window installation and some other stuff next week. So please join us for that. And then my final announcement is that we have our March Summit coming up. We're excited. It's going to be happening on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. And this is the She Who Constructs Summit. And we will be joined by guests from Holzraum System, from Schildtrees Construction, from Unity Homes, from New Frameworks, Maine Passive House, and the Endeavor Center. So we're going to be hearing from women who construct in the Passive House world. So please join us for that. I'll share a link for registration in chat. Thank you.